Well met, everyone. I am Rich Delich, and today I am going to be reviewing Drizzt Guide to Combat. This is a PDF that I downloaded off of DM's Guild for $7.95. I will run it through my review system of layout, design, and editing, art, and of course, content. I hope that through this review, you are a bit better informed as to whether or not you feel like this might be some content that is a good fit for you and your gaming group. Let's jump into it. Up first, layout, design, and editing. The front cover looks good. You have all of the typical bits of information that you would expect. You have a nice big title. I like that the red here is in bold, but yet there's a little bit of flavor to it. It has a little bit of that grunge with kind of that slit, that slash, if you will, going through the text itself. But this tells me that even though Drizzt is on the cover and his name is there, once I see that combat in big bold letters, that is what I'm looking at, which is exactly what it says here. It's the ultimate resource for running unforgettable combats. You've got your interface through here that looks good. The credits look good. Now, there is one point here. With the table of contents, the boxes are completely unnecessary. There was an attempt to perhaps confine the words and the numbers within these little blue boxes, but what it did is it caused some areas to, as you can see, it's a little off. And that's a definite slight against it all, and that's why I think this stands out the most. The rest of the document, there's some spelling errors and whatnot. The rest of the document is actually very legible and it's well laid out. So I'm not sure what happened here. Perhaps it was a mistake or an oversight, but there's definitely some layout and design issues there with this thing here. As you can see on screen, it just looks a little off to the eye. But as I said, as you get through, I like the nice little addition of the kind of parchment paper with various words by Drizzt, which is a nice touch. And then as you see here, you have the nice big bold words that indicate what sort of section I'm in. It has a nice little divider with this kind of yellowish line, and then the font is nice and readable. It's in column format, and as you see, this is a nice touch here, like I said, but it's slanted, so it's not exactly like this one. It's maybe on a different piece of parchment paper that looks folded. So it looks really good, and it adds just these little bits of flavor from Drizzt's words in the various Icewind Dale trilogy books and whatnot. So you've got these nice little subheadings, and it just is very, very well laid out, which makes this stand out all that much more. Now, here is another issue. The navigation is not accurate. So if I was to click on additional thoughts, page 34, and I go to page 34, I'm on Grids versus Theater of the Mind. That should be right here on page 31, 32. Additional thoughts, page 34. When I click to that, I have to scroll down a bit to page 37 here, and that's where additional thoughts are. That's a thing. It's not a huge make or break here, and we are talking about layout, design, and editing, so I'm nitpicking all the stuff there. That's why the section is here, but there is also only 2 points possible that you can either gain or lose, but that's definitely a thing. If you're going to have a table of contents for me to efficiently just know, okay, I want to just deal with how do we deal with running simultaneous combats? Cool, page 40, boom. That's what it says here in the table of contents. I go ahead and click on that. And no, that's before combat, that's during combat. If I have to scroll down and find it, what's the point of the table of contents? So if you can go back and sort of edit this and give a little bit of revision on it, who is it? Darren Scott. Definitely make that change, because that is it is a slight from a layout, design, and editing, which really ties into just how do I efficiently navigate through any given piece. So, though we're looking at a single navigation section, we are looking at a poorly done table of contents. Among the 49 pages, as I said, good, 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 good. As I keep scrolling down, a good 47 of the pages are well done. Based on that, I will give layout, design, and editing a 1 out of 2 possible points. Next up, art. So the front cover is absolutely gorgeous. It's beautiful. And as I understand it, with DM's Guild, when you submit this stuff, you have access to sort of a freely shared database of various pieces of art and stuff like that. So oftentimes you will notice that on a lot of the DM's Guild PDFs, you're going to have art that's kind of hit or miss, things that maybe don't pertain to the subject that's being talked about on that page, and so on and so forth. So you're not going to be spoiled with this level of art throughout the whole thing, but it does fit. It's obviously Drizzt. It's a dark elf, and we're talking about his guide to combat. Why him? If you know anything about the guy, He's very efficient in combat. He's a wonderful fighter. So it's a neat take on how you took Drizzt and then you put in these little interjections of various things that he said throughout the whole thing. I mean, there's a bunch of little points of his words and various comments on various things. So that's a nice little touch, and the front cover artwork is really, really well done. Now, as we navigate our way through the book, there are a few little pieces of art, but they don't have anything necessarily to do with what section I'm in. You know, when we talk about DM etiquette, this piece of art has nothing to do with the section on DM etiquette. It's just interjecting some different pieces of art that break up the visuals of it, but regardless of where the art came from, free or not, or, you know, available to everyone else, so it's not entirely unique to this piece, the art is well done, and it is a nice breakup aesthetically for the eye to kind of see some pieces, so it's very nice. And I like when you see some pictures in a piece that otherwise maybe doesn't even need art, because the bulk of the content here is just simply talking about, it's kind of like coffee table talk, or if I was sitting with the author and we're just kind of chatting about our ideas on how combat is run and some issues that are brought up. So it's more of just novel format. It's just reading some content that's there. There isn't anything where we're talking specifically about a very visual thing. So art isn't even necessary at all. So seeing them kind of dispersed and, you know, laid out in various points here is really good. I'm also going to count the various pieces of parchment that are thrown in on various pieces of paper here by Drizzt. I'm going to count that as art as well, because that's a visual thing. It's not something that's integral to the bulk of the content. It's just adding some flavor, but it's presented aesthetically quite well. In that regard, you know, it's not everywhere. There's a few pages. As you can see, I'll scroll through 1 page, 2 page, nothing there at all. And then you have a little piece on the bottom. Because it's not everywhere, but it also doesn't have to be, we're going to give art 2 out of 3 possible points. Up next, content. Well, what do we have? We are looking at 49 pages of resources for running unforgettable combats. Now, the content itself for $7.95, if you're getting 50 pages of stuff, there's a lot here. I feel like it may help one of 2 DM types. So either the DM that he might be somewhat experienced as a dungeon master, but he's having some issues with his group in combat, whether it's the actual makeup of the group, meaning, you know, maybe the players are min-maxed, or he's just not able to balance one player versus another. Maybe the group is a little bit too unwieldy and too large for his table and the system, as we're talking about 5th edition, of course. So that's sort of a DM where he may be a good DM and he may be a veteran DM, but he's just having some issues with combat. Or this could also be geared to a completely new DM, so that it gives you a bunch of things to consider when you run combat. Combat is one of the 3 pillars of Dungeons & Dragons, right? You have social stuff, you have exploration, and then you have combat. It's a very important part. Now, does this not appeal to someone like me, where not only am I a veteran dungeon master, I'm also quite savvy in my combat? The only way that I feel like it maybe doesn't appeal as much, the content at least, is when you're somewhat like me as well, where I've kind of tried to wrap my head around combat so much that I'm kind of set in my ways. I know how I want to run my combat, and there isn't a lot here that's going to completely sway me in a different direction. That being said, you do have 49 pages of just really good bits here. The bulk of it, as I was sort of scrolling down through, you know, where I get this introduction, why run combat, system design, narrative, when not to run combat, drama, so on and so forth. A lot of the content is similar to if I sat with, who is this guy? Written, produced, and layout by Darren G. Scott. If Darren and I were just kind of hanging out in a Starbucks or just having a cup of coffee and just chatting about combat for 3 hours, it's easily readable. Right? It's very efficient and it's well written in that it feels like we're just talking to each other. So the author isn't trying to be so adhering to, you know, the theme or a certain flow or a very medieval vibe that it sounds more conversational, I guess is the best I can say. And if that's what you're looking for in the bulk of the content, then wonderful. You know, it's like, hey, here's some ideas. Let's just talk about it real quick between you and I, and let's kind of just throw some ideas back and forth. And here's just maybe how I would run it. And it comes off that way. And that's a good thing. So there's a lot of the bulk of the content that covers that. And it covers all aspects of combat. It covers so many different questions that you as a dungeon master might have of, all right, I have too many players. What can I do to speed up combat? Or, man, I'm having a problem with my initiative system. It tells you and gives you some suggestions on how you can run initiative. It just covers so many aspects, but again, it's in a very conversational sort of feel. But there are some bits in here. I've got some pieces that are sort of highlighted. It talks about when, here's a chart here, right? If you want to have aspects of combat that deal with called shots, I feel like we need to get that weapon out of his hand, or if I can just blind him, that would be enough to turn the combat in our favor. Instead of just keeping it conversational, it does now give you a chart where it says, all right, what you're going to do is you make a called shot, you have disadvantage on it. If you already have disadvantage, you can't make a called shot. But assuming you hit, now the target makes a Constitution saving throw with a DC equal to blah, blah, blah. And what are you calling shot on? Oh, I want to hit him in the head. The target suffers disadvantage on all ability checks until the start of its next turn. You hit him in the arm. He has disadvantage on the next attack it makes with that arm. It's giving you ways, practical ways that you can actually do that. And there's a lot of that. It's in abundance throughout this whole document. And when you have 49 pages worth of that, there's a lot here. There's a lot of things that, even as I said in the very beginning of the video, I'm a veteran DM. I've been running as a dungeon master. Yes, I sucked when I was a kid. But I first ran a D&D session 1983. So what are we looking at here? 36 years? That's how long I've been at this. I also have experience with I'm currently on my 4th consecutive campaign since 5th edition came out. So we're talking about 5 years or so with a group of 10 players. So I have I'm not going to say unique, but I have an unusual experience with combat because I have so many players. And even though I've been at this for 35 years and I'm quite savvy in combat and the rule set and how to wrangle in and how to speed up combat and all the tips and tricks, and I've read everything he mentions here. If it's by Chris Perkins, Matt Mercer, Jeremy Crawford, I've read the stuff on Sly Fursh. I've read the Angry GMs, how to run combat like a dolphin or something like this. I've read so many things, yet there are still so many bits here that kind of spin the wheels in my head and make me think. I don't have the only way or the best way or the right way. It's just my way. But it's a way of someone that's been doing this for 35 years and has run hundreds and hundreds of combats at levels 1 all the way up to 9th level spells, level 18, 19. And when you can still offer some tips and some things that I didn't think about that might help me navigate my way through a more efficient and just straight up cooler session, you have my applause. Job extremely well done. The content of this 49-page document, plus, I didn't mention it in the beginning, there is an actual other little zip file where it's telling you about using various icons to keep things simple. So you don't have to worry about miniatures, but yet you can kind of use almost grid-based combat. It offers a blank icon that you can print out. It offers this sheet that you can print out to use as various icons. It offers another blank sheet where you can write your own stuff within and just simply print that stuff out. It offers an initiative sheet. It talks about it in the bulk of the writing here. It offers it to you. This is a separate zip folder that comes with it for the same price. You get all of this stuff. When you want to create stat blocks, look at this. This is 6 pages of things where it talks about how you can create your own squads, kind of large mass combat type stuff. It gives you just extra bits. When you've got that much content for $7.95 for $8 roughly, I have to give this 5 out of 5 for content. So all of that being said, convenient that I happen to be on the final thought screen. This is my final score. Go out there, folks. Get this. This is Drizzt Do'Urden's Guide to Combat. It's well worth your money. It will help you tremendously, even if you didn't think you needed it. If you're going to run combat, especially if that is one of the major pillars of your campaign, take a look at this book, this PDF. Download it off of DM's Guild today. That's all I have for all you folks. Thanks everyone for watching, and take care.